Dennis was walking home from work when he ran into his friend David, also known as Eboti. David had just received payment from a client and wanted to celebrate at a hotel in Edo. Dennis was happy for his friend, who had been struggling to find work and had turned to online romance scamming. As they entered, Dennis noticed it wasn't a hotel but rather a local bush bar. Dennis also noticed a group of 19 men wearing blue. They stared at Dennis and David, and one of them approached them. Dennis felt uneasy as the men led them to a room and locked the door. The men began to beat Dennis and the others, slapping and kicking them. Dennis was forced to drink a strange, foul-smelling liquid. The beatings continued, with the men taking turns to flog them with their belts. One of the captives, a young boy, was shot and killed when he refused to join the group. After the ordeal, Dennis stumbled out of the room, battered and bruised. He was told he was now a member of the Lord confraternity. For 2 weeks, Dennis lay in bed, nursing his wounds and trying to come to terms with what had happened. He regretted going to the hotel with David, a decision that would change his life forever. Dennis's phone buzzed with an urgent text from David, his friend who had introduced him to the Lord confraternity. Dennis immediately left his friends at home and took a bike to the designated meeting point. As a new initiate, Dennis had been assigned a task by the confraternity leaders. He was to spy on Kennedy, a notorious rival cultist who had been terrorizing the Lords. Kennedy, also called Kendi, was infamous for leading a hit that had killed 3 Lords and several new initiates years ago. Dennis's mission was to track Kennedy's movements without being detected. He followed Kennedy from his house to a bar, where he met with some of his gang members. Dennis kept a safe distance, pretending to watch a football game in a nearby field. After a while, Kennedy left the bar with a few of his men and took a bike. Dennis quickly hailed another bike and instructed the rider to follow Kennedy at a safe distance. They trailed him for about 12 minutes before Kennedy arrived at his destination. Kennedy stopped his bike at the entrance of the street and called the hit leader to report Kennedy's location. The leader instructed Dennis to keep a close eye on Kennedy and assured him that a team would be sent to take care of Kennedy soon. Dennis continued to surveil Kennedy, who emerged from the building with his girlfriend a few minutes later. They entered a bike and headed to a popular hotel. Dennis followed them, keeping a discreet distance. After sending a detailed report to the hit leader, Dennis waited anxiously for further instructions. He had done his part in tracking Kennedy, now it was up to the confraternity to take action. Dennis watched anxiously as the Lord's hit squad closed in on Kennedy. He had done his job, providing the crucial information that led to this moment. As the squad took down Kennedy, Dennis felt a mix of emotions. He was relieved that the mission was accomplished, but a growing sense of unease gnawed at his conscience. Had he just contributed to a cycle of violence? The Lords celebrated their victory, but Dennis couldn't shake off the feeling that he had lost something precious. He thought about Kennedy's girlfriend, who had been with him just hours before. What would happen to her now? As Dennis walked away from the scene, he noticed a small inscription on the wall, written in blood, "The cycle continues." He felt a chill run down his spine. The Lords had won this battle, but at what cost? Dennis wondered if he had made a terrible mistake by joining the cult. He couldn't help but think that he was now a part of the very cycle of violence he had once feared. The taste of victory was bittersweet, and Dennis couldn't help but wonder what the future held for him and the Lords. The aftermath of Kennedy's demise was marked by a series of brutal attacks and counterattacks between the Lords and the Maphites. Innocent lives were lost on both sides, and the streets ran red with blood. Dennis, fearing for his life, kept a low profile, believing that his relatively new status as an Lord would shield him from detection. However, he was sorely mistaken. One fateful night, Dennis received a frantic call from his fellow Lords, warning him that a Maphite hit squad had been spotted closing in on his neighborhood. The informant revealed that someone had betrayed Dennis's trust, exposing his role in Kennedy's demise to the Maphites. Panicked, Dennis fled his home immediately, leaving behind his family. The hit squad arrived soon after, and in a horrific case of mistaken identity, they butchered Dennis's brother, who bore an uncanny resemblance to him. The brother's pleas and protests fell on deaf ears as the squad took his life. Demise was consumed by grief and regret when he learned of his brother's tragic fate. He cursed the day he met David, the friend who had introduced him to the Air Lords, and lamented his decision to join the cult. Haunted by the memories of his brother's brutal murder, Demise relocated to another state, seeking a fresh start. He vowed to leave his past behind, but the scars of his experience would remain with him forever. The senseless violence and bloodshed had taught Demise a valuable lesson. Cultism was a destructive force that stole lives, killed dreams, and left only devastation in its wake. His story served as a cautionary tale, a reminder to others of the dangers of getting entangled in the deadly web of cultism.